Alright, so hey guys, welcome to another Warframe video, and update 26, the Old Blood is finally here, and my god, the patch notes are absolutely enormous. Because, well, the update is absolutely enormous. If I were to just sit down and read the patch notes, I would be here for about an hour, and that's not just due to my lack of reading skills. So the update sort of consists of 4 big things and then a bazillion smaller ones. The 4 big ones are Grendel, our newest Warframe, the second phase of Melee 3.0, the Vauban and Ember rework, and finally, probably the biggest thing, the Kuva Lich system. So let's check all of these things out in a spoiler-free manner as possible. Also, please bear in mind that this is just an overview of the update, so I'm not gonna go too in-depth on anything, mainly because it just came out, but also because I want to release full-size videos on everything as I work my way through the different systems in the following week or so. Now, when you first log in, there will be a short introduction screen as well as a short teaser that I'm not going to spoil, simply log in and watch it yourself. And if you log in before the end of 2019, you'll be given a Forma bundle, which is 3 fully built Forma, as well as a 7-day affinity booster. And if you've met certain criteria, mainly to just prevent you from abusing this, you will receive a legendary core as well. And finally, I also have to disclose that I am indeed a Warframe partner, and I get a bunch of stuff for free. So I got the Day 1 access stuff for free, which is the entire Grendel collection, and a bunch of other stuff as well. And let's start off with the rework. So Ember's first ability is still the same. It's a fireball that you can either throw just like that, or you can charge it up for more damage, or you can use it to buff yourself and nearby allies if you have the augment. She does have a new passive though, where she gains 5% extra power strength for every enemy within a certain radius that's on fire. Her second ability has been changed to immolation, where she sets herself on fire and gets a bunch of damage reduction. Her third ability is pretty similar to what it was before. It simply sends out a wave of fire that sets enemies on, well, fire. And her fourth ability, instead of sort of just farting fire everywhere, now calls down meteors from the sky, and it's called Inferno. You also may have noticed that there is a new meter at the bottom right corner of the screen, and this is something that you will have to learn to manage to play Ember properly, because certain abilities, like her third ability, will drain the meter, while others, like Inferno, will build it up. It's sort of a different take on the battery charge system we have on Gauss. And that is enough for Ember, because once again, this is sort of just a shallow overview of the update, and I'm going to do full videos for everything later on. Next on the menu, we have Vauban. So his first ability is now a roller that will attach itself to an enemy, stun that enemy, and then zap out electricity, which can also stun nearby enemies with an electricity proc. This doesn't do a lot of damage, but it's cheap and he can throw out multiple at the same time. His second ability is pretty similar to what it was before. It cycles between 4 grenades, and if you hold the ability button down, you will start throwing those grenades out. So there is a flechette grenade that will simply hover about and do a little bit of puncture damage around itself. There is the vector pad, which is, well, a boost pad. That is awesome. You can even chain them together, and if you so desire, you can let the enemies have some fun as well. Then there is an overdrive grenade, which will provide a damage buff for you and nearby allies. And finally, there is the tether core, which will tether enemies to the grenade once it's thrown on the ground. Now, this tether grenade works really well with his third ability, which is called Photon Strike, where you throw a grenade on the ground, which marks an area for an orbital strike. Oh my god, that looks awesome. And finally, his fourth ability is Bastille, but you can also hold the ability button down, which will collapse the Bastille into a vortex. You also may have noticed that these level 100 heavy gunners have no armor whatsoever. And that's because Bastille strips armor now, and it does it really well. And while we're at it, let's also quickly check out Grendel as well. So his first ability is Feast, and when you press it, you will consume enemies in a cone in front of you. Those enemies will then be stored in your gut, and they will drain your energy. Then you have a bit of a choice. So you can either hold the Feast button down, which will simply puke the enemies out with a little bit of toxin damage on them. You can press the second ability button, which is called Nourish, which feasts on the enemies in your gut and gives buffs to you and nearby allies. Or you can use the third ability, Regurgitate, which will send the enemies flying as a toxic projectile. And finally, we have the ultimate ability, Pulverize, where Grendel rolls into a little ball and does what rollerballs do. Rolls around, knocking everything around, and it is the most absurd and hilarious thing you can imagine. Next up, we have the second phase of Melee 3.0, and there's a lot of stuff here. So first of all, combo execution has been homogenized really hard, and there are basically only 4 types of combos. Button mash, a forward button mash, a forward block combo, and a block combo. It's much simpler than it was before. Okay, so you're either just mashing the button, you're mashing the button and running forward, you're mashing the button and holding the block button, or you're mashing the button while holding the block button and running forward. That is how you execute every single combo in the game now. And I'm gonna tell you right away, it feels way more fluid than before. Second of all, the full melee stance is back, so if you hold the weapon swap button, you will enter a full melee stance where you can once again manually block, and you can even aim glide using a melee weapon. You still have the option to switch between melee and firearms by doing quick attacks and aiming down sights and all of that, but if you so choose, you can go into a full melee mode. Third of all, heavy attacks and the combo counter. So channeling is gone, and if you press channeling, you will instead do a heavy attack now. The idea here is to build your combo counter, which now builds much faster, by doing normal attacks, and then spend it by doing a heavy attack, which will do significantly more damage. By the way, at the moment, heavy attacks don't drain the combo counter in the simulacrum. You can also execute heavy slam attacks, which if positioned properly will knock the enemies up into the air, allowing you to juggle them by hitting them repeatedly, which effectively crowd controls them until they either die or fall on the ground. You can also do some basic melee combos in the air now. It's crazy, you don't even have to be on the ground. It's nuts, there is so much that changed, and I simply don't have the time to talk about it today. There is too much, it needs its own video because melee weapons have been rebalanced. Mods have been rebalanced. Some of them have been changed because, well, channeling isn't a thing anymore. So for example, Life Strike heals on heavy attack now. But I at least wanted to cover the things that I personally see as the biggest changes. The homogenization of combos, the return of the full melee stance, and the removal of the channeling mechanic in favor of heavy attacks. And now let's talk about the Kuva Lich system. Now, there are going to be some minor spoilers here, because you have to finish the war within to gain access to this system. So if you're like a really new player and you haven't finished the main storyline yet and you don't want to have it spoiled, now would be the time to leave. So, as far as I understand at the moment, when you finish the war within, you get access to the Kuva Fortress and all that good stuff. If you play a Grenier mission that's above level 20, you have a chance to run into this.
You are Queen Chosen Soldier. Greatness awaits you. Greatness, or perhaps death.
This will give you an indicator that marks a Kuva larvaling. This is essentially your Lich, or rather what will become your Lich once you kill it. So here we go, let's slap her about a little bit. And that's it, I have now generated a Lich.
Your dismemberment of me has not resulted in a conventional outcome.
This Lich now occupies a portion of the star chart, and you can easily see which portion it is by simply going to the navigation and looking for a massive red blob. The objective now is figuring out how to actually kill the Lich, because at the moment the Lich is immortal. This is where the new Assassin's Creed style finisher blade, the Partisan, comes in. Because the goal here is to figure out a combination of mods that will actually kill the Lich once you equip them on the Partisan. So you have to figure out what the combination of the mods is, and you also have to get them, and the mods have durability and they will expire after you use them to defeat, I do believe, 3 Liches. Now, figuring out the combination of mods is pretty straightforward. You simply have to play missions that have the red blob over them. Once you go into one of these missions, you will randomly see these icons that mark the Lich's thralls, and what you have to do is defeat the thrall and then use the finisher blade on them. So simply do a finisher, and this will give you a little bit of intel about what the combination of the mods is. But this seems to be a pretty lengthy process, because this mission, for example, had 5 thralls in them, and I did the finisher thing on all 5 of them, and the amount of intel I got on the first Requiem mod was pretty tiny. So that's one way to do it, you know, kind of like the surefire way, the slow and steady way of getting it done, but there's potentially a faster way to do it, and that's to simply slap on random mods and try them on the Lich to see what happens. Maybe you will find the right combo, and the game even encourages it. Because apparently the mods won't take durability damage if you use the incorrect combination, so you don't actually defeat the Lich with them, and it will track the incorrect combinations on the Lich screen. Now, when it comes to getting these new mods to then use on the Liches, you get them by cracking tier 5 relics. Those are a new type of relic that have a 30% chance to drop in a Kuva Siphon and are a guaranteed drop from a Kuva Flood. Though that might not be entirely true at the moment, because I did 2 floods and a bunch of siphons and I only got 1 relic, so that might be a little bit broken right now, but you know, that will get fixed in the future. Because they are supposed to be a guaranteed reward from a Kuva Flood. Now these are relatively similar to a normal relic, and the one I got, which was Requiem 2, had a Riven Sliver, then 12 under Kuva and Atan Ember Star, then an Exilus Weapon Adapter Blueprint, and 2 of the Requiem mods, so Yahoo and Vauban. Also, you can refine them with traces. And once you do that, and I would, by the way, very much recommend you do this in a party, don't do this solo, like me, and get an add-on Ember Star and just be very sad. You have to take them to a special tier 5 fissure that will only spawn in the Kuva fortress. And here the process is essentially identical to a normal relic. So you run around killing enemies which give you reactant. Once you get 10, it cracks open the relic. You inevitably get the thing you want the least. You go cry in a corner for a little bit and then you go back to Siphons and Floods to get another relic, and you do that until you get all the mods you need to defeat the Lich. And that's kind of like a very bare bones explanation of how to Lich. Oh yeah, and the Lich and its underlings will steal some of the rewards you get throughout the mission, and it's not too much, and I think you do get it all back once you defeat the Lich. Also, there's this really weird button at the bottom right corner of the Lich screen. It's tutorial? I don't know what it is, and I'm not clicking it. It's probably a virus. Silly things aside though, the Lich screen kind of tells you all you need to know. It tells you the weaknesses, the resistances, the weapon the Lich has, the bonus the weapon is going to have, and it tracks your progress both in the intel you've gathered from the underlings as well as the attempts that you did with the random mods. And just to kind of quickly cover the other things because the video is already pretty long, the new melee weapon that comes with Grendel, the Massatir Kebab Krang, has not too bad attack speed of 1, 24% crit chance, 2 times crit multi, 28% status chance, and it does do primarily impact, but it's backed up by a decent amount of slash, and it doesn't have any polarities, just AV in the stance slot. Next, we got weapon exile slots, which are a bit of a game changer. You get a blueprint for these, by the way, from the tier 5 relics, and yeah, these are pretty game-changing because you can even put in Vigilante supplies. That's a pretty good mod if you can just, randomly put it on there for essentially free. You just need to put in a little bit of forma. And a funny thing with shotguns is that primed ammo mutation doesn't actually drain any capacity at rank 0, which I think is going to be changed, but for now you can just put it on for free ammo mutation, even though it's not going to be very strong. Another pretty huge thing is the change to heat procs, which you may have seen with Ember, with her doing quite a bit of damage with just pure heat damage. And it's because heat damage now stacks in intensity, so we can actually do more damage as you proc more and more of it. And when you set an enemy on fire, they will temporarily lose 50% of their armor. And that is just insane. Then there were some minor changes to Titania. They nerfed the Catch-a-Moon chamber really hard. They didn't necessarily nerf the damage, but the damage fall-off is very steep. Its effective range is like 10 meters now or something, which is much less than it was before. There's a new Ayatan sculpture, a new vampire Kavat that you get in a helmet-like way. You basically bring your Kavat to the plains of Eidolon during the night, and you let the vampire Kavat bite your Kavat, and then turns into a vampire Kavat. And there's just, I could go on and on and on. This update is huge. But I think I've been blabbering for long enough. It's 3 in the morning, I want to go to bed. So I thank you very much for watching as always, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video and it was helpful, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.